The banks of lakes and rivers are a really good spot to find coyote willow. Coyote willow is a shrubby species of willow. It usually grows up to like 10, 12 feet tall, and it has narrow trunks, much of them coming out from the same point, forming thickets. Here's coyote willow. They have these narrow leaves, and this variety that we have around here has this kind of sagey green colored leaf. Usually their leaves are just a little bit more narrow and a darker green. The leaves on this variety are a little more downy as well. Either way, if you find a species of willow, you can peel the bark, chew on it, and if it leaves a dry feeling in your mouth, it's going to be good for tanning hides. Tannins are the chemical within tree bark and other plant material that turns skin into leather. Not all tannins are the same, and not all bark will have the same effect on a skin to turn it into leather. Some tree barks make really brittle leather, but willow bark's particular tannins and other compounds in it have an effect that create very soft, supple leather. So it's my preferred material, especially for tanning furs. If you just chew it on one side, you'll feel that side of your mouth kind of get a dry sensation. That's how you know there's enough tannins to tan with. Of course, only use this test with species you know are safe. Every willow species is safe to use this method with. Oak is a good one too. The reason it actually causes that sensation is because those tannins are binding on to the proteins in your tongue and cheek. In essence, you're tanning your mouth. When I harvest my own bark for tanning hides, coyote willow is my #1 go-to because it grows abundantly here and it works really well for this. And throughout spring and the beginning of summer, you can peel the bark like a banana peel off the trunk of the willow, which makes harvest really, really easy this time of year. No tools required. I don't need a wood chipper or anything like that, like when you're harvesting bark from a large tree with very scaly bark. The bark on these shrubs are really pliable, strong, and actually make a good rope, and they tan skins into really soft, flexible leather. You can see this thicket behind me. There's a ton of bark to be had here, and by cutting these stems down to the crown, it actually spurs a lot of regrowth. In fact, it stimulates the willow plant to grow more stems than what was cut, oftentimes putting more than 2 or 3 times as much growth as before. When the plant is stimulated to send up more growth above ground, it also sends roots deeper down and spreading along. So this thicket will increase in density, and it actually just improves the area. Willow wants to be harvested. The bark is used for a plethora of crafts, like making rope, lashing shelters, things like that, and of course, tanning hides. The flexible branches are a great material for pack frames too, once you pull the bark off of them. So as long as I'm not tearing out roots or harvesting many times in a season from the exact same plants, I'm just increasing the amount of growth that's going to be here. Willow increases under grazing pressure because it's a favorite food of the beaver. Beavers cut down willows down to the crown, and in turn, they send out all this regrowth so the beavers can keep coming to those spots. It's like they're farming their own food, and all the regrowth is more leafy with more tender bark, so it improves the quality of the food for the beavers. So by harvesting here, I'm just acting as a beaver does in the landscape, increasing the amount of willow here overall. Small branch cuttings can also be taken, planted anywhere with adequate water, and they'll grow whole new trees, which will grow whole new thickets. Peeling these willow branches is going to be really easy this time of year. Any other time of year, you got to sit with your knife and carve off all the pieces because the bark is really adhered to the wood. This time of year, the sap is flowing really freely because the tree is putting on a lot of growth. And this allows the bark to separate from the wood very easily, just like a banana peel. Here, right where I cut it, you can see that in effect already. The bark is starting to stick a little more. It's mid-July right now. And best time for this is between May and the very beginning of July. So we're just at the end of that window. The bark is starting to stick a little bit more. But still, I got this bark peeling around the entire circumference of the tree in one piece. And that is exactly what I want. You can smell that willow. That's a very good smell. If you peel the bark of willow and smell it, then that's the smell that your leather is going to have when you tan with the bark. I'm honestly surprised this was not a common tradition among Native American cultures all across North America, really, because there's trees that work very well for tanning everywhere. From the very tops of the tree lines at 10,000 feet elevation up a mountain, down to the coastal regions and even in Death Valley, there are trees and plants that you can make leather from. Yet for some reason, bark was only used for dyeing buckskin and other materials, whereas all the tanning was brain tanning. So really, bark tanning was a thing across Europe and Asia. There we go, there's our first little bark bundle ready to dry. A couple small bundles like this will tan a full rabbit hide. You need a fair bit more if you want to tan a deer hide. I've got some marmot skins. Groundhogs are one type of marmot. All of them are similar to groundhogs. Around here we have yellow-bellied marmots. I really like their fur, so I trapped some last winter. I got them in my freezer, and I don't like hides taking up space in my freezer for long. So I want to try tanning one with willow bark. I love willow bark for tanning because every bark tans a little bit different. Some tree barks make very brittle leather, some make really tough, dense leather. Willow makes a supple, strong leather. So it's going to be really supple, have some stretch to it, a lot like brain tan, but it's kind of less effort when you're tanning furs to tan with bark instead of brains. And that's largely just because of stretching. There's a lot less stretching to do when you're bark tanning as opposed to brain tanning. So there's our peeled willow. Now, oftentimes when I collect willow bark, I save all these leafy branches and I give those to my rabbits. Willow leaves are usually around 16% protein, give or take a little bit. That's just like alfalfa hay. And they're really nutritious. Rabbits love them. Goats love them too. And because of their high tannin content, they help to expel worms. So it can help deworm your livestock. Then you can bend your peeled willow branches to make a backpack frame. This here is the perfect size for a backpack frame. I would just need to tie it in this shape and let it dry. It's going to dry without cracking, and it's going to be ultra lightweight because willow is such a lightweight, low density wood, but it's got a good amount of strength to it too. So it'll be like an aluminum pack frame. Obviously not quite as strong, but certainly strong enough for all of your needs. In fact, people have been using willow pack frames for thousands of years. Earliest examples, I think, are from the Bronze Age. I'm going to go ahead and tie that up and save that. I could use willow bark, that's what I've done in the past, but this time I'm just going to grab some cord from my haversack here. That's why I carry it after all. That'll just take a couple days to dry, and then it'll be permanently in this shape. I'll put some cross members on this to strengthen it. I really dislike modern chemical methods of tanning. Chromium sulfate is the main component used to make really soft leather these days. It's a very toxic substance. It's a waste product of other industries, and the leather it makes, while very soft, is inferior to any traditional method of leather. Chrome tan leather deteriorates with sunlight, sweat, moisture, salt, and even soap start breaking it down. So it's hardly washable. It has to be dry cleaned. But traditional brain tan buckskin and furs and skins are actually machine washable. The most ancient tanning technology we know of is more washable than the most modern tanning technology. Bark tan is also another washable leather, although you may need to recondition it with oil after washing. But it's so well preserved by the tannins, UV rays don't break it down. It handles salt and repeated washings really well. Soap has no effect on it. You can even bury it in the ground and dig it up a year later with it still somewhat intact, because tannins are an excellent natural preservative. Once you have a branch peeled like this, you don't need to worry about all the bark up here. There's just not enough bark up here to really be worth the time, because the more this branches, the more time you have to spend pulling that bark, and there's so little of it on these thin diameter branches. So at this point, I just give it back to the wildlife. Pretty much every herbivore out here loves willow branches. So none of this is actually going to waste. This is feeding the deer, the beavers, the muskrats. It even creates better habitat for aquatic insects. So I'll go ahead and toss it right in the water here. Or of course, you can take it home, give it to your rabbits. If you want to feed livestock, you can even dry this into tree hay to feed them during the winter. With our willow bundles like this, you can actually just leave them in the sun or in the shade. They're going to dry out within a few days as long as you're somewhere warm. If it's very cool or humid where you are, these might start molding before they dry. So try and get them somewhere a little bit drier. Here in the desert South Idaho, where it's about 25% humidity and 90 degrees today, these will dry out in just a few days, even in a tight bundle like this. Once they're dried, these last indefinitely. And to actually do the tanning, you'll take the dried bark and just chop up the whole bundle. I like to use a tomahawk like this on a log like what I'm sitting on. Lay a tarp out to catch your chippings. Chop it all up into about 1-inch pieces, and then fill a pot with that. Add just enough water to cover it, simmer it for about an hour, and then I'll save that liquid and simmer it again for another 30 minutes or so, and then I'll simmer it one more time. That'll give me 3 different strength solutions And you can either start the hide in the weakest solution first, or you can just mix all the solutions together and put the hide in then. I'm experimenting to see which I like better. There's some potential pros and cons to each style, and we'll get into that in a different video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so you can catch me tanning not just domestic rabbit furs, but also other wild animal furs like deer, the marmot I was talking about earlier. I've got a whole bunch of stuff I want to do, and I want to know what people want to see on this channel. So leave a comment as well. Truth be told, right now this channel is in its infancy, and I can't wait to see what this evolves into. So please let me know what sort of content you want to see from me. I want to show you all the survival basics, but we're going to go so much beyond that too. Someday we'll even get into blacksmithing, and I'll show you how to make a tomahawk like this, like what was carried in the 1700s. And now I've got a willow pack frame to make, and I want to show that to you too. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful and inspiring. I'll see you in the next one.